kind of playing it fast and loose today with this panel because you guys are like the only ones in here to hang out. If you want to talk about mystery or horror, our authors are going to share some stuff. Yeah, want to hang? He's like,
You're allowed
now you
to
put him on
say
the
no.
spot.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I'm trying with my brother right now.
Oh.
No, that seems like a more
We'll send
important.
you
Yeah, that
the-
seems
Right.
like an important thing.
Thank you. You guys look like good people.
Some of us.
Like we're writers, I'm not sure of that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember in the last session there was I think maybe like a mom and a daughter,
Yes.
the little girl with the red hat, she wants to be an author, and so she was telling me about a book that she's envisioning, which is about trauma. It starts off with trauma of grandfather passing, and then she talks something about, I hadn't heard before, but it was called Legendary Veterinarian. Is that okay? But and then there's like warring clans and like,
Oh, fun.
I'm just like, get
Right.
that in here.
You're right.
But I just brought that up because
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of panels. Like, these are my first ones, I think, that are like genre focused. Most of what I have been on so far is tips for writing, and that, I don't know, that's something I'm passionate about because I've received a lot of bad advice, and there's a lot of bad advice out there. Like, I got in trouble because I disagreed with Stephen King. Yeah,
that should be the panel.
I got in trouble because I just
Yeah.
writing that one down. Oh my god.
No criticism.
But you know, that's just because you can write doesn't mean that the advice you give is good. And I tell people that everything I say works for me. It doesn't mean that this is this is a very personal journey. But yeah, Stephen King with his like, if you don't read, you can't write. And it's like, that's pretty gatekeeping, my man. Like, you know, it doesn't work for everyone. Anyway, not to
Is
get
that,
on
is
my.
that the no? I
Yes.
I intensely want to know about this disagreement.
That
What you
was-
got in how you got in trouble for that.
No, I mean, so I'm not popular enough for Stephen King himself to question it. But some
Who
of
is
his,
that pretty man?
And Luke walks in.
And Luke. Luke, you are also very pretty.
I haven't been complimented yet, so
You're also very
thank
pretty.
you. I needed that.
Well,
Okay.
you're not married to one of my best friends, so.
Fair enough. But,
Neither is
yeah.
Luke.
Yes,
but Luke-
Luke.
Luke lives next door.
You're like, hold on. I don't think so.
Luke is pretty by association.
It's a proximity thing. Yeah.
Max has so much pretty, he's got enough to go around.
Speaking of, did you get a hold of Eric? Oh, lame. What a dummy. He's also very pretty. I'm just saying.
But you brought up an interesting fact though, as far as like the tips. You know, me not being an author, I think one of the daunting things is that I don't have a lot of time to read anymore. You know, I read a lot, maybe as a middle schooler or high schooler, but I think it's good to say like you don't have to read a ton of books. That's
Right.
good to hear.
Yeah. And for me, like the inspiration is what matters, right? And studying the craft of storytelling, because I don't consider myself a writer so much as a storyteller. And I study that craft through manga, movies, TV, video games, like so many different media. But to narrow it down and say you have to study the exact way I did, that just discourages, because people like me, I have aphantasia, so I can't see pictures in my head. And personally, some people are fine with it. Personally, that makes reading really boring because it's just words on a page, and I don't get that experience. When I read manga, I see the pictures, right? But if you told me, right, and if you told young me, well, you never will be able to write if you don't read, I would have given up.
What's young you?
Well,
I was gonna say, like, man,
to be
you
fair,
kinda, like,
I published my first book at 16, and I was not, like, if you told 16-year-old me, okay, stop writing because you're never going to be good because you don't read, I would have, and that terrible. I don't think we should ever give that advice to people of, you can't do this because you're not doing it my way.
Also, audiobooks completely count to me.
Well, that's true
Audiobooks
too.
Are absolutely like that is reading.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
we
Yes.
love we go through audiobooks all the time. Yeah, audiobooks absolutely count.
So in that case, if you're listening to an audiobook, you're still not seeing pictures.
No. It's I can't. I internalize stories, but I don't get this pretty picture. I remember in high school, because I read a little bit, right? I read Hunger Games. I was so into it, and then they made the movie, and everybody's like, "That's not what Katniss looks like." I'm like, "What do you mean? Like you can't see her. This is And it wasn't until I was like 25 years old that I found out that people aren't joking when they say, "Yeah, I can picture an apple." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, like I know what an apple is. Yeah, all of us know." But no, people close their eyes and see an apple, and I'm like, "No, you don't. That's hallucinating, and you're insane. That's what that is."
We are.
Right.
It's not the literal image in front of you. It's just you remember. It's memory.
Yeah.
You've seen an apple before, so okay, I remember what the last one looked like that I saw.
Yeah.
That's what I do is I read or write. But I'm one of those authors who I don't read either.
Yeah.
I completely shocked somebody in my writers group one day when they went around and said, "Okay, everybody say what you're reading right now." And I said, "Oh, I haven't read a book in 20 years."
Yeah.
Because I write full time, and I was then. I read all the time as a kid in high school and everything. But later, when I started writing my own, it was like, well, if I got time to sit and read, I could be writing something. And this takes so much time, and it is my full time occupation. The last one I read, I think, was the last Harry Potter book when it came out. But since then, I think if you talk privately to some other authors who write on a regular basis or full time, they'll tell you. Probably not in front of other people.
Yeah.
I don't really care. But I read about the writing business a lot. I will read about techniques and things. But actually sit down and read a novel. I do watch movies to get the storytelling fix and just for fun.
Yeah.
But I actually have not read anyone else's book. So if you don't, I'd say don't feel bad as long as you read some book sometime and you're learning. Not all of this. So I've talked to other writers who will not say it in public. Yeah, I don't read novels either because I got to write my own. So
that was my big thing for a long time. Is that I'm so busy reading either for editing purposes for other people, or I'm reading to work my own craft.
And I edit too.
So that's why I audiobook, because it's something I can do while I'm driving. It's like I still like to consume other things.
Even I'm right now. I mean, I just finished Faultless, so that was reading and editing my own book, which is already hard, right? But then I'm also working on a Powerless audiobook that is taking a hot minute, but I am listening to the chapters. So if I'm doing an audiobook, it's my own book. If I'm and so I haven't been, but I listen to The Witcher on audiobooks. I have done I've read, as it were, and that's the thing too, is I'm definitely not saying don't read. I'm just saying if you don't want to, don't feel like you're a failure, right? That's the
I've gotten into a number of those discussions with like the pantsing versus plotting types of arguments. I am 100% pantser.
Yes.
And there are plenty of people who will say you're wrong. You have to do an outline. You have to plot. You have to do X, Y, Z. You have to have at least this. But no, I tried it. It sucks.
That was actually the reason I started writing. So, as I was first published at 16, I wrote my first novel at 13. And the reason I did it was because my teacher told me at the class, we were working on outlines in middle school. And she was like, no successful author has ever written a good book without an outline. And I was like...
And that's why they're a teacher, not
right.
an author.
I was like,
It's like,
No, it's like, all right, so you're telling me that it's impossible to write a book. And now, granted, she said a good book, but I'm pretty confident in where I've grown since then, but without an outline. And I'm like, okay. So I wrote a book.
Challenge accepted.
Yep.
Challenge accepted.
Little 13-year-old me. And I will acknowledge that was not a good book. There were errors galore. It was
Well, yeah, that's what editing's for.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing that I tell people. Sorry, I've derailed the panel, but another thing I tell people is, your first book sucks. Don't feel bad about that. Don't I mean, when you started learning to walk, you could barely stand up for 2 seconds. You're not good at this naturally, right? So I have 8 books that I wrote and never published, and then 14 since then. And if you look at Cursed, and even my first book that I published, The Z Virus, I don't have it up here because, I mean, it reads like a 16-year-old wrote it, right? It's not bad. It's just,
Yeah.
I've come so far since then. So people will compare and be like, well, how are you doing this? I'm like, bro, I have 2 million words that I wrote and never published because I didn't think they were good enough to publish. Like, I'm this isn't my first book. I didn't start here.
Yeah, there's a lot of trial and error before you
Exactly.
get there.
Yeah.
There's a good question. Yeah.
Did you let that teacher read that first book to you?
I'm sorry.
Did you let that teacher read that first
Oh
book?
yes, I did. I kind of regret it because again, it was not. I changed one of the characters' names. This was I like cringe at the. I changed one of the characters' names. And I did a find and replace.
Oh,
There, yeah. So
Oh yeah.
been there, done that.
so that was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did. I walked in there confidently and dropped it on her desk, and I was like, guess what? I didn't write an outline. Like, but the funny part too is that I haven't spoken to her in since middle school, but I like to
You
believe
still
that
resent her.
no, I appreciate her, to be honest, because exactly,
Yeah.
and I think I like to think that she is proud of that she knows that she had that impact on somebody, and maybe it wasn't for the reason that she wanted to, but she changed my life, and she challenged me to do something that has become so core to who I am, and I have no ill will, and I'm eternally grateful for the fact that she showed me this. It's just funny that I did it to prove her wrong.
Yeah.
And I think
Some
I
are
have.
motivated by money and some are motivated by spite.
Right. I'm going to be honest. If you're motivated by money, you shouldn't
You're in the
be.
wrong
Don't
business.
be a writer.
I mean, that's the dream, right? And I've done the math. I've run the numbers. I'm like, if I can get 100,000 people to buy all my books, I have so many books out there. I never have to work another day in my life. That's not a huge,
100,000.
right. It's like not a huge
Meanwhile,
number.
I'm at like 500 people on my Instagram.
Dude, I'm at 300. That's I have these goals, but it's not unattainable. But if that's why you're here, there are easier ways to do it.
Can I interest you in crypto?
Yeah.
Can I interest you in crypto? This has gone to be a very creepy panel.
That's the scariest thing anyone said.
Oh my gosh, we've completely lost the plot.
Yeah.
Well, I would submit, however, to bring it back around a little bit, that really any work of fiction I would consider to be a mystery, because when you're writing it, you can't be sure where you're going to end up, and especially when you're reading it, you're always reading to see how's it going to come out. Even if it's a romance and you know they're going to end up together, you're still reading to see
You're there for the journey.
how does that happen? How did they do it? So almost that is kind of how I look at it. Almost any novel.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a
and you
journey, right?
ghostwrite a lot of stuff. So, do you? I'm kind of bringing it to outlines as well as the mystery thing, but like, do you receive an outline or do you receive like an idea?
When I did mine, I'm not ghostwriting as much right now. It's mostly editing and writing some more of my own. But yeah, I did a whole 18 series cozy mystery
couple of years ago that actually did really well. That's one reason I wanted to stop ghostwriting. But I wish I'd kept this. I just couldn't at the time. It was either that or work at Walmart. So I'd rather do the stories. So yeah, I have written quite a few mysteries. In that case, the client just said, I need a series of cozies with a female protagonist, 40 to 45,000 words, go.
Wow.
Whatever you
Nice.
want to do. Yeah, if you have a little bit of a track record and they've seen that you can come up with stuff, yeah, you can do that. And she paid quite nicely and gave me a bonus, and so it was not the best possible situation if you're going to ghostwrite. That was all done through Upwork. I added and everything through Upwork. It actually works out pretty well.
Yeah, all the ones that I did, they gave me an outline.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, some
I
do
also
with
have
a little more general. Yeah.
But I could work off of somebody else's outline. I can't do my own.
Yeah.
Something that's come up recently for ghostwriting is I got this story and I don't know how to finish it. It's falling apart. Can you fix it? So I've done those. I don't mind doing those because they're about halfway there anyway. I just patch up the problem. So that's pretty simple. But that is a way to make some money if you can write at all. If you need some extra cash, and go on Upwork and put up a profile and you can do things like that. So it's a romance and mystery, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that is those are two genres that are always hungry.
Yeah.
Always hungry.
Always, yeah. Cozy, for anyone who's not sure, cozy mystery means it's an amateur who's solving the crime, as opposed to somebody who's a professional detective or police or something like that. You ever like was it the Hardy Boys and Miss Marple and stuff like that? They're all amateurs, and they always end up solving the thing. And you can have dead people everywhere, but you can't have anything graphic on the page. There's no X-rated scenes or anything like that. So they're not terribly difficult to do.
Like is Agatha Christie? Is that like the template?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Where does Poirot fall then? Because technically, isn't he a professional? But those are cozies, aren't they?
Hercule Poirot.
Yeah.
I haven't read those.
I think those are old enough and classic enough that they don't fall into the
They're just a
specific.
classic mystery.
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes, I'm not sure.
Sherlock Holmes, I think, is not cozy. I
Yeah,
think that's,
Yeah, he was actually a detective, right?
yeah.
So he would not be. Those are not cozies. They kind of feel like it a little bit because they're.
Yeah. But that was enough years ago that cozy mystery as a genre had not evolved yet.
Right. The current ones it has to be pretty tight.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I was asking.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he predates the cozy mystery genre.
Yeah, that was my question. Technically, by definition, it sort of is a cozy. Like we think of it as a cozy, but him being a professional breaks that. But as Avily put, they're so far back before we subgenre, then they're
It's just a mystery.
I
yeah.
can't remember him ever being hired. Or all the Poirot I've ever read, he just shows up and somebody said,
that's fair.
like,
If
That's
he's
fair.
not
So
getting
he's not-
paid,
Oh,
Right.
that's
true.
Yeah.
I'm watching his movie for this woman who's looking for a husband. She met with him.
okay.
But she was covering a film.
That's weird.
Yeah. Don't hire the best in the business if you're gonna
right?
try and get away with it. Come on, man.
Prove I didn't do it. I did.
I did.
So
Hire a cut rate dollar store version. Like,
Right.
So Janeen, can I ask, so was there a set template that you said, okay, it's always going to stick to this template, or do you say, I'm just going to write and see how it comes out?
Oh,
When you-
with the ghostwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the mysteries. No, I gave her the idea that I had for okay, it's this protagonist, and she's in this kind of small business because they usually are. They're running a coffee shop or a newspaper or something. So I came up with a different one. I'd love to tell you, but I can't. Because when you ghostwrite, you trade all rights to the books. No one can know that you wrote them. It has somebody else's name on it. No, I just ran it past the client. So I'd like to do this and this kind of protagonist and all. And she said, yeah, go for it. And it actually worked out real well because I keep an eye on them on Amazon with the rankings and all. They had tons of good ratings and did real well. So I'm not doing that anymore. I'm keeping them if I can. So it just depends on the client that you get. You can usually tell if you're reading the job postings on Upwork, like what they want you to do. And some of them are really want to control everything, probably because they've been hiring people who really don't know how to write. But sounded like something maybe they could do. So what they turn in really isn't usable. So they give you all these guidelines, but this one was different. So it's much better. And yes, I outline. but I always have. And not a real strict one. It's like just basically, okay, here's what's going to happen, and I want it to end like this, and I think we can do these things along the way. That helps me to go from step to step, so I'm not just stepping in the void.
That's just it. You have to figure out what works for you.
Right.
Yeah, there are people who just write into the dark. I think it's insane, writing into the dark. But I'd rather have some idea where I'm going. So.
Well, and that's what I mentioned on another panel is like the pantsers versus plotters, right? I understand the desire that humans have to group ourselves always into something, right?
Yeah.
But
it's a spectrum.
Exactly. No two people write the same way. So, like, your level of outlining, your level of like however it works, it feels silly to me to be like, no, you either plot or you completely don't.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a spectrum, and everybody falls somewhere. There's very few people that are complete one way or the other. Things change, even if you have a really solid outline. Things change along the way, and even if you're a complete pantser, you sometimes need to have an end goal in mind. And, like and it could change book to book too.
Yeah, I will say that like so my books aren't strictly mystery genre, but on the trip up here, because some of my friends were talking me down, I was like, I don't have anything to say about mysteries, and they're like, yes, you do, because like a big portion of Cursed is about them trying to figure out what a werewolf is, how do you cure it, how do you whatever, what's causing these different changes, things like that. And I found that it's really interesting to write mystery without an outline. Like you kind of just have to keep it all in your head, right? Um,
I'm too scatterbrained for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So, Brett, you say you don't do outlines,
right.
So, would you say you're writing the stream of consciousness and you go back and fix it?
Okay, so am I don't read and I don't like reading my own stuff. So some people will put whatever they can on the page and go back and edit it, which is totally a valid approach. I hate editing. I edit once, and because I want to make sure it's good, obviously. But when I write in my head, it has to be good. It has to be something I'm proud of. So it's not so much stream of consciousness in terms of the writing itself, but the events are. So what happens, how the characters react is just what comes to me. But then as I'm writing, I'm like, okay, but I need this sentence to sound pretty because I don't want to come back and redo it. So the process of writing takes me a long time because I try to make sure everything's good. But yeah, I will be writing chapters and I'm like, okay, I was not planning on this character mattering or on them taking this detour, but like Carson doesn't do it so much, but Grace in Faultless, right, I'm like, no, you're supposed to go here, but I'm like, she wouldn't make that choice. That doesn't make sense yet. So I have to take her somewhere else so that she grows up a little bit, and then she would make the choice that gets her where I need her, right? So it comes down to just knowing my characters and following what I think they would naturally do. Um, anyway, that was maybe a circular answer to your question.
Yeah, I don't use an outline. I've tried it. The book that I did a really solid outline for, I hate. I like the concept. I may go back and rewrite it someday, but it is not a process that works for me. I'm kind of the opposite. My rough draft is rough.
Yeah.
Like I just get the story out, and then I have several rounds of editing, which I also don't like.
Right.
Like I am a professional editor. I edit other people's stuff. I like that just fine. but editing my own stuff I don't love. But that's my process that works for me, is that I have, you know, I have a lot of things, a lot of holes to fill, a lot of things to fix on rounds 2, round 3, and then after I've gone it over it a couple times myself, then I send it to an editor, somebody who's not me, because I need another set of eyes. Like the book that I'm working on right now, like I first wrote the draft several years ago, like many moons, and so I went back and like rewrote it, and like I hated the ending, and so I reworked like the last, like I cut like 20,000 words and rewrote like maybe 30 to get it to an ending that I liked. But that ending created a lot of other plot holes that I had to then go back and fix, and a lot of other things. And the story is much better for it, but I had to go back and rework, and I'm still reworking. And then my editor was like, and I told her, I'm like, okay, here's the situation. I know it's inconsistent. I know there's stuff I missed. That's what I need you for, is to tell me like this happens in the wrong spot. This doesn't work. I don't see what's, is this part of this plot line? Is this, you never really follow through on that. And she did a fantastic job. But so now I'm having to go through and like do all of that work to fill in those holes that I knew were there, but like I couldn't.
They're hard to find.
Yeah, I can't do it myself because I've been over it so many times. I don't remember what's where or what needs what I didn't cover yet.
Right.
So,
what's your process, Jack? You've been very quiet this time.
Yeah. So I have a lot to say. So get comfortable.
All right, I like it.
Jack, tell me, how many books do you have, or what do you have out now?
What I have out now, I actually have a lot of short fiction out. I have the books that I have out are the Spherical Tomy book that's been out for a long time, and then Am I Evil? Spherical Tomy was actually science fiction book. Came out through it came out as a podcast novel, and then Am I Evil is a graphic novel. I don't want to. I wouldn't say it's horror. It's based on the Metallica song.
That's the one you're holding up.
So yeah. So it's kind of blood and guts kind of a thing, but hopefully deeper than that. It's not just hack and slash stuff. It's got a little bit of fantasy stuff in it.
How do you get deeper than guts?
Yeah, that's true. That's deep. That is deep in the guts. So for the novel, I actually did something kind of a hybrid of this. I actually had just bullet points of what's going to happen. So it's not like an outline and then I would stray from it. I'd go for like a week or two and then look back at the outline of my list of bullet points and go, oh my gosh, I've completely gone off the rails. But it helped me though, because I needed to know what was going to happen way down the road. When they got from this location to this location, I needed to know, and they were in this situation. Because I would forget. I'm not a smart person, so I would just forget. So that's an important part for me. That's kind of my process. So I'd say bullet points, which is kind of an outline, but it's a loose outline. One thing that something that's important to me is I'm a big prose geek, which actually this goes back to, this is my argument in favor. I'm not your guys' methods work, so I'm not saying don't do it, but I really like. That's what I get most out of reading. I'll get someone who can put a really good paragraph together. And that's the kind of thing I get really psyched for, that kind of thing. Everyone talks about Cormac McCarthy, just when you can write a paragraph like no one else. That's the kind of thing I like to do. So for that reason, I tend to really fixate on getting the chapter right. I can't just kind of blast it all back out and go back and fix it. And actually, I got to interview Christopher Moore years ago. I remember he said that. That kind of stuck with me. He said, I don't really do, once the book is done, like I don't really go back and do a lot of rewrites. Yeah. Like it's when I hit the end, like there's very little to fix. Yeah. That said, that first reader is critical. I had such a plot hole that my first reader caught, because I didn't. It's like, how did they have this thing? They gave it away in this scene, and then back here, 20 pages later, they've got it. Yeah, because I'm an idiot. Thank you.
Because reasons.
Yeah, because I just forgot, because I'm thinking about 20 different elements, or 100 different elements here, and this one thing I forgot that they gave it away in the scene, so I have to go back and fix it. Right. So, first readers,
it's huge.
Yeah, that's a huge thing.
I have my family to do that for me, and I appreciate them so much, because I write a lot of Buildings Vermont coming of age stories, right? So my characters change dramatically from chapter 1 to chapter 30, and I know them as who they are in chapter 30. So they'll say something in chapter 4 that is far too mature, um, and then go back to being a stupid teenager, and people like will read it and be like, that's probably like I see where you're going, but he's not there yet. So yeah, for me, my continuity is more like I tell my family every time. I'm like, every word they say, question it. Don't don't assume that I know best because I wrote it. Like,
As far as process, I'm an army of one.
Yeah.
I do all my own. I do kind of a combination outline, rough draft, so I know where it's going. Then go back through it and make it sound like the actual book. And then one more time just to polish it up, make sure it all sounds good, and then we upload to Amazon. The only thing I don't do is the covers, because I have no talent for art at all. But these are pre-made covers, and I do put all the font and stuff on them. You can do that through the website. It's very easy. So yeah, I don't have any first readers, no editors, nothing. So for good or bad, I mean, if this is like, oh my God, what is this? It is. They are all mine. So I actually like to edit. It's easier than writing. So I mean, you can do it that way too. Even if you don't have anyone, you say, well, I don't have any first readers. I don't know what to do, or I don't have an editor. Just jump in and go. You might be better at it than you think, and there are ways to find editors.
well, and if you're not better at it than you think, you'll get better at it, right? It's
Right.
You can't. Yeah, like every skill takes practice. So.
All right. Anybody got any questions for our panelists before we wrap up? All right. As I was saying, yeah, more.
Well, you're not there. Why don't you tell us, share some of your wisdom?
You guys have said a lot of the stuff I would have said too. I'm fortunate in that I have a pool of beta readers. We all kind of swim together. So I read for them, they read for me. I've edited for people professionally. I've been ghostwriting for a while. I was given outlines. I have to play by their rules. I hated it. But paychecks were nice. Paychecks are nice. And I do not. My first real dive into the mystery side of things was writing a gothic, and that was probably the hardest writing I've ever done. Was trying to keep the mystery there, while not tricking the reader into thinking that just by like, I'm just not going to tell you that, but then later I'm going to be like, see, you should have known that already. Like that, there's this nuance, this dance you play, and I'm sure Janeen knows too. You play this game of like cat and mouse with the reader, where you're like, I'm just giving you just enough information that later you're going to go back and go, oh my God, wait, didn't she say something about that before? And that's and when I find them in my own writing later, where I'm like, oh, I did do that. Oh,
Right.
I did.
I've done that when I'm editing before. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this would be really good writing. Oh, hey, there it is.
Yeah. Good job, past Brent.
Right?
Yeah, good job. Yeah, good job. Well done. Yeah, that's my big thing. Especially, I love writing the blood and guts corner, so that's why I thought I could write a gothic. I was shocked to learn there's a difference.
It was a learning curve.
It was a learning curve. Gothic does not mean just splatter blood all over the walls, but also add pretty dresses. No. Atmosphere, yeah. So yeah.
Oh, it definitely has a lot to do. You can, and you do it. I recently did a Gothic book project with some other author friends of mine, and let me tell you, I was like, I thought you do this all the time. This is easy. No, it's not. You just don't want to be hokey, but at the same time, it's almost kind of hokiness. That Gothic and horror acceptance is very interesting.
Yeah, there's nuances between the two, and I definitely, the worst part about for me writing the Gothic was I liked it, and so now I'm writing another one, and I didn't want to write another one.
And you can make it your own too, and do it. You can do a Gothic that's got more of a horror thing in it.
Oh, it definitely does. It's just with horror, you can be just blood and guts through the whole thing and
Hack and
not
slash.
hack and slash your way through it. But with Gothic, there does have to be the mystery element to it too, where there has to be something kind of spooky going on off to the side. So that was my thing of like, oh, how do I not just tell them what's happening while I'm hanging?
Mystery is a bit like romance. You can combine it with almost anything you want. That was one of the attractions to try to write romance. You can add any, science fiction, fantasy, horror, whatever you want, and make it into a romance.
And that's a lovely segue to what our next panel is going to be.
Okay.